Most people who chose real estate over stocks didn't make a financial mistake. They made a psychological one. And the terrifying part is, their brain made it feel like the smartest decision they'd ever made. There's a number that gets thrown around in real estate circles constantly. Cash flow, monthly profit. The difference between what your tenant pays and what your mortgage costs. That number is real, but it's also one of the most misleading numbers in personal finance because it's the only number most people ever look at. Everything else, every hidden cost, every invisible expense, every hour of unpaid labor, gets filtered out before it ever reaches the conversation. And your brain is specifically designed to let that happen. Here's what nobody tells you at the real estate seminar. The $470 a month that sounds like freedom? After you run every real number over 20 years. The person who never bought a single property and just left their money alone might end up in the exact same place, without a single weekend lost to a broken water heater. That's not an opinion. That's math. And by the end of this, you'll understand not just what the math shows, but exactly why your brain was never going to show it to you on its own. Meet Ryan and Daniel. Both 32 years old. Both living in the same mid-sized American city. Both have spent the last several years being careful with money, skipping vacations, driving older cars, saying no to things their friends said yes to. And now they both have $50,000 saved. Same income, $58,000 a year. Same starting line. One decision splits everything. Ryan uses his $50,000 as a 20% down payment on a $250,000 rental property. 3 bedrooms, decent neighborhood, the kind of house that photographs well on a listing. He locks in a 30-year mortgage at 7% interest. Monthly payment lands at $1,330. He finds a tenant within 3 weeks willing to pay $1,800 a month in rent. On paper, before anything else enters the equation, that's $470 a month in profit. Ryan texts his brother that night. He feels like he finally figured something out. Daniel takes the same $50,000 and puts it into a total stock market index fund. He sets up an automatic $300 monthly contribution, turns off the notifications, and goes back to his regular life. His colleagues ask him what he's investing in. He says index funds. They nod and change the subject. There's no story to tell, no address to drive past, just a number on a screen that most people would find completely unimpressive. On day 1, Ryan looks like the winner. He has an asset. He has a tenant. He has a monthly income stream. He has a story that works at every dinner party for the next decade. Daniel has a confirmation email. It's not close in terms of how it feels, but feelings and math are not the same language. And in 20 years, only one of them is going to matter. Psychologists call what Ryan is experiencing social proof momentum. When a decision earns visible approval from others, the brain releases a small hit of dopamine that reinforces the choice as correct, regardless of whether the underlying math supports it. Ryan isn't just investing in property. His brain is investing in identity, and that's a completely different transaction. For the first year, everything looks exactly the way Ryan imagined. Rent hits his account on the 1st of every month. He drives past the property on his way to work. He's claiming mortgage interest on his taxes, shaving a couple thousand off his annual bill. He's building equity with every payment. His neighbor asks him about it, and Ryan explains leverage like someone who's been doing this for years. He's 3 months in. Daniel logs into his brokerage account once. His $50,000 has grown to about $52,000. He closes the app. Nothing about this feels like anything. Here's what year 1 actually looks like in numbers for Ryan. He collects $21,600 in rent. His mortgage payments total $15,960. Gross difference, $5,640. That number looks great on a napkin. Then reality starts sending invoices. Property taxes on a $250,000 house average $3,000 annually. Insurance runs $1,500. Basic maintenance, the professional standard is to budget 1% of property value per year. That's $12,500 minimum. And that assumes nothing breaks. Ryan's year 1 is relatively clean. A minor plumbing fix for $340. One afternoon, showing the unit when his tenant asks for a weekend away. He finishes year 1 with approximately $300 in actual net profit. Not $5,640, $300. And he hasn't assigned a dollar value to a single hour of his own time. The brain has a well-documented tendency to remember the headline number and forget the footnotes. Behavioral economists call this selective encoding. We absorb information that confirms the decision we've already made and unconsciously deprioritize information that challenges it. Ryan heard $400 of the month. His brain stored $470 a month. Everything that came out of that $470 got processed as temporary, exceptional, manageable, not as the actual cost of the investment. Year 2 starts well. Tenant pays on time every month. Then October arrives and the water heater fails. What on $100 to replace? 2 weeks later, the tenant mentions a slow drain that turns into a $680 plumbing repair. Ryan handles both without complaint. This is part of the business, he tells himself. He's right. What he doesn't fully grasp yet is that this is the business, not the rent check. By year 3, Ryan has collected $64,800 in total rent. His mortgage payments have totaled $47,880. That's $16,920 in gross cash flow over 3 years. The number still sounds good, until you subtract everything else. Property taxes, $9,000 over 3 years. Insurance, $4,500. The water heater replacement, $1,100. Plumbing. Repair, $680. 1 month of vacancy. Between tenants in year 2, $1,800. In lost rent, plus $600 to clean and relist. A cracked driveway repair his new tenant mentioned. During move-in that Ryan felt obligated to fix, $900. Small. Maintenance items across 36 months that individually felt minor but collectively added up to just over $2,200. Ryan's actual net cash flow after 3 years of landlording, approximately $1,900 to $3,400 depending on how generously you count his time. Not per year. Total, over 3 years. The business that was supposed to generate $470 a month has generated somewhere between $53 and $94 a month after real expenses. Daniel's portfolio after 3 years, with $50,000 initial investment plus $300 monthly contributions at 10% average annual return, sits at approximately $76,000. He has put in $60,800 total. The rest is growth. He has made 0 phone calls, attended 0 showings, and fixed 0 drains. Here's the psychology insight that changes how you see this entire situation. Researchers call it effort justification. The harder and more involved something feels, the more valuable our brain decides it must be. Ryan is working for his investment, fielding calls, coordinating repairs, managing relationships, making decisions. Every hour he spends feels like proof that something real is happening. His brain interprets the effort as evidence of value. Daniel is doing nothing, and to the human brain, doing nothing rarely feels like the right answer, even when the numbers say otherwise. The gap between feeling productive and being productive is one of the most expensive gaps in personal finance. By year 5, Ryan is on his 3rd tenant. The second one left after 14 months, which meant 1 month of vacancy. A professional clean for $450, repainting a bedroom the tenant had inexplicably painted dark gray for $780. And 3 weekends of Ryan's time showing the unit before finding someone new. He's raised rent to $1,050, which helps at the margins. But his property taxes have increased. His insurance renewed higher. And in March of year 5, the HVAC system, the central air and heating unit, dies completely. The replacement quote comes in at $7,400. This is not optional. It's May. His tenant has rights. Ryan pays it within the week and doesn't. Sleep well for several nights afterward thinking about what else in that house is aging. Toward its replacement date, his cash on cash return, the actual annualized profit relative to his original $50,000. Investment is hovering somewhere between 2% and 4% after all real costs. He told someone at a party last year it was closer to 12%. He wasn't lying exactly. He just wasn't counting everything. Daniel at year 5, approximately $116,000. Still doing nothing. Still earning nothing that feels real. Your brain cannot feel compound interest. This is not a metaphor. Neuroscientists who study financial decision-making have found that future rewards activate significantly weaker dopamine responses than present ones. And the further away the reward, the weaker the signal. Daniel's wealth is growing in a curve that will eventually become almost vertical. But that curve is invisible to human perception in its early stages. Ryan's wealth feels real because it generates present tense events. Checks, repairs, decisions, conversations. Daniel's wealth generates nothing except a number that moves slowly upward on a screen. Your brain rates Ryan's investment as more real, more active, more valuable. Not because the math supports that conclusion, but because present tense stimulation always outweighs future tense abstraction in the brain's reward system. The financial industry has known this for decades. It's why real estate seminars fill hotel conference rooms on Saturday mornings. It's why the words passive income land differently in your body than the words index fund. One phrase activates your imagination, the other activates your calculator. And most people's brains were never trained to trust the calculator over the imagination. By year 7, something starts shifting in the numbers that neither Ryan nor Daniel can fully see yet. Daniel's portfolio has crossed $150,000. The compounding curve is beginning to bend. The gains on his gains are now generating more new wealth annually than his $300 monthly contributions. He didn't do anything to cause this. He just didn't stop it. Ryan's equity, the difference between what his property is worth and what he still owes, has grown to approximately $85,000 to $95,000. Real wealth. Partly from appreciation, partly from 10 years of mortgage payments slowly reducing his principal. But his total liquid wealth, the money he could actually access without selling the property and navigating a months-long transaction, is close to zero. Here's what nobody talks about in the real estate versus stocks debate. Liquidity isn't just a financial term. It's a psychological condition. When your wealth is locked inside a single physical asset in a single zip code, your brain knows it. You feel it. Every major life decision, a job opportunity in another city, a health emergency, a business idea, a family crisis, gets filtered through the question of what it would cost to access your own money. That invisible weight compounds silently over years in ways that never show up in a return calculation. Real estate doesn't just cost money. For many people, it quietly costs options. What you're about to see in the final numbers isn't just a comparison of two investment strategies. It's a comparison of two completely different relationships with your own financial future. And one of them has been sold to you your entire life as the obviously correct choice. By year 20, both paths have reached their destination. Now it's time to see what that destination actually looks like. Ryan's property is worth approximately $450,000 to $500,000 20 years of appreciation at 3% to 4% annually on a $250,000 asset. His mortgage is nearly paid off. Remaining balance somewhere around $40,000 to $50,000. His equity sits at approximately $400,000 to $460,000. That is real. Substantial, undeniable wealth. Ryan built something. He can see it, touch it, sell it, borrow against it. But here's the full accounting nobody does at the real estate seminar. Over 20 years, Ryan paid approximately $148,000 in mortgage interest alone. Property taxes at an average of $3,200 annually, $64,000 total. Insurance averaging $2,600 annually, $32,000 total. Maintenance, repairs, and capital expenditures conservatively averaging $4,000 annually, $80,000 total. Vacancy losses, turnover costs, and miscellaneous expenses, approximately $18,000 total. His total out-of-pocket cost beyond the original, $50,000 down payment across 20 years sits somewhere between $60,000 and $95,000 depending on how his specific market and specific tenants treated him. And this number doesn't include a single hour of the hundreds of weekends, evenings, and lunch breaks he spent managing the property. Daniel's portfolio at year 20, $300 monthly contributions, 10% average annual return, approximately $420,000 to $465,000. Total money contributed over 20 years, $122,000. Everything above that is pure compounding. He has never fixed anything, never managed anyone, never lost a night of sleep over an HVAC system. His wealth is completely liquid. He could access all of it within 3 business days. Same destination, completely different journey, and completely different freedom waiting at the finish line. Now, here is the reframe that this entire video has been building toward. And this is the part that most finance channels will never tell you, because it doesn't fit the format of a debate where one side wins and the other loses. Ryan didn't choose real estate because the math was better. The math was never the reason. Ryan chose real estate because it gave him something that index funds fundamentally cannot provide: a story about himself that other people could see and respect in real time. Think about what real estate actually sells. Not returns, not cash flow, not equity. It sells the feeling of being someone who builds wealth the way serious people build. Wealth. Tangible, active, visible, controllable. Every property owner gets to say, "I own that," and point at something real. Every index fund investor gets to say, "I have money in the market," and watch people's eyes glaze over. These are not equivalent social experiences. And your brain, which evolved in social environments where visible, status determines survival, responds to them completely differently. Psychologists call this identity protective cognition. When a belief becomes tied to how we see ourselves, we unconsciously filter evidence to protect that belief rather than evaluate it. Once Ryan decided he was a real estate investor, his brain stopped being a neutral calculator. It became a defense attorney. Every repair was proof of his work ethic. Every vacancy was temporary. Every below expectation return was an anomaly. The identity protected itself from the math. This is why the same mistake repeats across generations. It's not ignorance. It's not laziness. It's the fact that real estate investing feels like becoming someone, while index fund investing feels like waiting for something. And human beings are not wired to choose waiting over becoming, even when waiting is objectively the better financial decision. So what should you actually do with all of this? Here's the honest answer. Real estate genuinely wins in specific situations. If you're in a market where monthly rent is at least 0.8% to 1% of the purchase price, the cash flow math works from day one. If you use house hacking, living in one unit and renting the others, you can eliminate your own housing costs entirely while building equity, which changes the return calculation dramatically. If you treat it as a real business with systems, proper tenant screening, and capital expenditure reserves, the returns can exceed stock market averages over time, especially with leverage. Real estate in the right market with the right approach is not a bad investment. But if you're choosing real estate over index funds primarily because it feels smarter, looks better at dinner parties, or because someone you respect told you property always wins, you're not making a financial decision. You're making a social one. And social decisions made with investment money have a very specific 20-year price tag. The question worth asking yourself right now is not whether real estate or stocks is the better investment. The question is, which one were you going to choose before you watch this video? And more importantly, do you actually know why? If nobody ever broke down money this honestly for you before, that's exactly the gap this channel exists to fill. Every week, we take the financial decisions most people make on feeling and run them through the full numbers they never see. Drop in the comments. Are you a Ryan or a Daniel right now? And be honest, most people reading the comments are a Ryan who wishes they'd started being a Daniel 10 years earlier. The interesting ones are the Daniels who almost became Ryans and want to talk about what stopped them. The most dangerous financial advice isn't the obviously bad advice. It's the advice that's mostly right, delivered in a way that makes sure you never run the rest of the numbers.